Everybody, welcome back to our second part of the Develop series about changing careers, the two-part masterclass, very kindly hosted by Sam. I hope that many of you were either there last week or were able to watch the video in time and come prepped with questions and further follow-up. As you'll notice, this is not a webinar, this is just a Zoom event, so this is an interactive session. You are very welcome to turn your cameras on if you'd like, to raise your hand to ask questions, and we'll invite you on to ask a question. You don't have to type them, although you're very welcome to type questions in the chat. Because it is being recorded, and I hope you all heard that the little voice told you that the event is being recorded. If you'd like not to be recorded, please keep your cameras off and yourselves muted. If you would like not to have your name attached to this recording, if it goes up on LinkedIn or on our YouTube channels, you're very welcome to change your name as well. So just in case you are concerned about that. And without any further ado, I'll hand over to Sam for our part 2 of our Changing Careers Masterclass. So Sam, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, and welcome back, everybody. So we're in week 2 of our Changing Careers Masterclass, and I'm excited to be back. You may tell I'm maybe an octave or 2 lower, I think, than I was last week. Have had a little bit of a sore throat, so apologies for that. Hopefully my voice is going to stand up. So there is a little challenge for me to get us through the evening. In call 1 last week, we looked at the following things, okay? So we looked at the Great Resignation and the McKinsey report that everyone has been talking about, with so many people on the move. We also looked at some big questions. If you remember, if you were with me last time, one of the things that I said was, I've been working in careers now for about 20 years, and I still don't know all the answers, okay? But what I have worked out is a lot of the questions that we need to ask to help you work through the answers to get to the good solutions for yourself. So we're going to be looking at some of those big questions again today. I talked about how life is short. Now, many of you have graduated quite recently. Some of our case studies, people are graduating as recently as, well, 2017, maybe even more recently, which is great. So you've still got lots of career ahead of you, but you're taking it really seriously. So I commend you for doing that. Well done for taking it seriously. But realize this, even though it seems like you've got this limitless number of weeks and months and maybe even years ahead of you, trust me, it goes really fast. And getting the right foundation, not frittering away years and months, even weeks, on the wrong job or things that aren't going to move you forward is really important, because the right progress will serve you very well in the long term, and it will help you have a happier life. So I'm really keen to help you move quickly and get your career onto the right track. That's what this is all about, this whole session. I talked about career ladders and walls. We often talk about climbing a career ladder, and that's all well and good. And in the early years of our career, very often we start to climb and climb and climb. We're trying to get promotions and get more responsibility and earn more money, which is all good. Unfortunately, sometimes we climb to the point where we can see over the wall, or we get a better view, and we say, do you know what? I don't like this wall. I think I'm on the wrong ladder, or I'd like to move my ladder along this wall and maybe be in the same industry but a different company. Or some people say, do you know what? I'm completely on the wrong wall here, and I want to go and put my ladder against something completely different. All of this is possible, okay? So don't worry if you feel like your ladder is against the wrong wall right now. We can help you change that. And what we're going to do this evening is look at a few case studies, a few brave souls from last week who kindly volunteered their story for us to go through. And we've also got some other people who've kindly volunteered to take part in a kind of quick fire Q&A later on as well. I talked to you about career greatness. Could you stand a little bit more greatness in your career? If you could, you're in the right place, because we're going to help you discover exactly how to find it. I've got a guiding metaphor. My guiding metaphor is what I call Everest, which is a destination on the horizon, the distant horizon, and the lily pads. I want you to imagine that if Everest is in the horizon where you're trying to walk towards with your career, imagine that right in front of us there's a big lily pond with some lily pads. And you can step on any of those lily pads, but the idea here is to get to your Everest, to the career, the job you ideally want to be doing. We want to step on as few lily pads as possible. So the whole idea is, let's not step on a lily pad job which is in the wrong direction and we're trying to head over here. So it's to guide us and make sure that we know how to get there. But it's also to give you a little bit of comfort. You don't have to get to the top of your Everest with your next job. No one jumps to the top of Everest in a single day, and very few people get to a dream job as their first job. So this is about planning your career, not just finding a job. We also talked about gaps, missing experience, and how to deal with them. We also looked at how you can set some criteria for your move. And I also introduced a career transition readiness scorecard, amongst some other bonuses. And these are all available to you in a members area. Hopefully, many of you have already got access to that. If you haven't, we'll be sharing the link again later on. You'll be able to gain access. You'll find the replays in there. You'll find the slides are in there. So everything that you want in should be in there if you want to come back and review this material. Okay. So that was last week. This week, what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly repeat my introduction of me. So for those of you joining for the first time, so you know who I am, why I'm doing this for you. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be covering. And then we're going to go straight into our 4 career change, real life case studies. And then we've got 3, what I'm calling quick fire Q&A sessions, where we've got other people who are also volunteering. I didn't have time to make them all away. We've only got an hour together here, so I didn't have time for 7 full case studies, but we're going to try and tackle as many of those as possible. I'm going to then recap on the key ideas for you, recap on the members area and the scorecard, and we'll try and answer any more questions you've got. And if you then want to book a session with me as well, that's also in the members area. So if you've got particular questions that you don't feel happy asking in the public forum here, that's fine. Ask me individually. I'm really here to help you. So hopefully that's making sense and you can see where we're heading to. My role here is that I'm a guide with a plan. I have helped people on this journey for many years, and I've seen a lot of people go from feeling lost or feeling that their ladder is against the wrong wall and help them identify options. One of the things with making a career change is that we get this fear of missing out. So it's like, well, if I don't like this, but I could change to this, but what else is there out there? And that FOMO, that fear of missing out, is quite a scary thing in terms of trying to make a decision. So some of these tools today are going to help you create options, then make decisions so that we can start to work out what will Everest be and what will the lead paths be to get you there. I've helped a lot of people along this path before, so I promise you, you're in safe hands. And my career as well, since I graduated from Newcastle way back in '98, some of you probably weren't born. 98 it was, I graduated from Newcastle in financial and business economics. Since then, I've always been a marketer. And I'm still a marketer. So when I'm helping you with your career, I'm helping you to market yourself, to tell your story in the way that's going to get you the job that you want. And I'm still a marketer as well. So while I spend about half my time on careers, I'm also in business too. I am working as an entrepreneur, working as a brand owner and a business owner. So I'm not just sitting in a cave all day cranking out CVs for people. I'm there at the sharp edge of business, just like you are. And I know what it's like out there. So I can really empathize with what you're going through. The good news is you get to choose your destination. My previous clients have chosen some of these companies and lots of others, and some smaller ones as well. I've just chosen a few of the bigger ones that you probably know. But I help ambitious job seekers to position themselves for the roles they want. And my clients have landed jobs with many of the world's most popular employers. And I'm really proud of that. Even this week, one of my clients has just announced to me, she said, I can't believe it's just happened, but she said, I've just got a 42% pay rise. And she wasn't doing badly. She was on £82,000 previously. She's taken it well over the £110,000 mark. And we were working together just for a short while. She said it helped so much to get those answers. So we can do this for you as well. We can get you more money. We can move you into the career you want. My promise for you here is I want this to be both interesting and useful. Interesting is great, but useful and interesting is even better, okay? So I really want this to be something you can take and apply. And I know last week, some of you even started doing the exercises during the event, so that's fantastic. So please do that again as well. I set the bar really high. This was my high bar last week. I said, thanks for being here. Here's my aim. My goal here is I want to make this the most memorable, pivotal, and useful hour of your year. Okay, I'm going to say the same thing right now, because if you haven't seen last week, you need to go back and watch that. We covered a lot of really important ideas as to how to shape your career. How could I be so bold as to make that kind of a claim or that kind of a goal? Well, it's because this is accounting. Your career accounts for so many hours and days, weeks of your year. You know, next to your sleeping hours, this is probably the biggest thing. You know, maybe even you're going to spend a lot more hours on your career than you're going to do sleeping in a year. This might be the most, you know, the biggest thing you're going to be doing. So if I can help you get that right, I think that's pivotal. Okay. So I'm really bold in making that claim, but I'm really serious. I'm really serious about helping you. So if you feel like you're stuck, let's get you unstuck. Let's help you find where you really want to be. To help you with that, what I've done is I've put together this membership area. In there at the end, we've got these bonuses that are going to be there for you as well. That podcast that you can see in the middle of the screen right now, that reveals how to do networking for job change. It reveals how to think about planning your career. It talks through the Everest and the lily pads. It's a 60-minute podcast, loads and loads of answers in there. And then the job search acceleration guide reveals 7 strategies, okay, that are going to really help you with getting the job you want if you're moving, to get it more quickly. And then Obvious Adams, the book you see at the bottom of the screen, an amazing book. Okay, it was written for the first time published for the first time way back in 1916. That's over 100 years ago. This is the centennial anniversary edition. So it has got the most powerful message. It's a very quick read. If you listen to the audiobook, which is there as well, it's 42 minutes. Okay, so it's not going to take long. I promise you'll get something out of it. It will change the way you're thinking about what you're trying to do and probably save you a lot of time. So enjoy those, all right? And don't get started on your search before you take the Career Transition Readiness Scorecard as well. You can find that if you want to jot down the URL for it. It's at obviouscandidate.co.uk. Okay, obviouscandidate, one word, .co.uk. And you'll find that's where you can take your scorecard and work out where you might have some gaps. Now, while I have a little drink, let's do a poll. I'm going to rest my voice for a second or so. Let's do the first poll of the evening. Who was here last week, or who's here for the first time? Okay, that's great. Thank you. So it looks like we've got about 80% of you were here, but we've got 20% of you who are seeing as you're joining me for the first time. Well, welcome if you're here for the first time. It's exciting to have you. Sorry you missed last week. You were really busy. I know there's a few people as well who couldn't make it to this one. They're going to be watching on the replay. So welcome. Those of you who are back, thank you so much for coming back. Huge vote of thanks and huge vote of confidence in what we shared last time. So I'm excited to share this with you. So that's brilliant news. Thank you very much. Our second poll. Last week, I introduced a number of exercises. So the second poll here is asking you who's had chance to complete those exercises or who needs some more time. All right, well done. So kind of the opposite way around on this. So about 20% of you have already completed them. So well done. Hopefully you've found that useful. By the way, these exercises are the kind of thing that you keep working with, and I recommend you keep working with them, keep dwelling on them, because you can do the exercise quite quickly usually. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but they tend to get better if you then allow your subconscious to dwell on the answer. And you keep coming back to it over a number of weeks. it's absolutely worth, even though we don't want to waste any weeks of your career, as I've said to you before, life is too short to be wasting weeks. It's absolutely worth taking time to get this right, because if you rush, if you think you found the right answer and you rush into making a move and then you realize a few weeks later, actually, that's not quite right, you get into a few more bits of the detail. We don't want you to do that. So take your time, take a few weeks to get this right. But it's brilliant that so many of you have already taken action on those exercises. Again, if you want to discuss those with me, we can look at that and answer some of the questions you might have in the Q&A coming up today, or book a call with me as well. Very happy to talk that through with you as well. Fantastic. Let's keep moving. So let's move straight into case study number 1. So this is one of the people who wanted to be kept anonymous, which is absolutely fine. What I'm going to do with each of these case studies, I'm going to quickly talk you through the context and a little bit of analysis, and then I've got 6 recommendations for each of these case studies. Here's the first one. So, case study A. This person had graduated with a postgraduate certificate in low intensity psychological therapies, got a distinction, and this was back in 2015, okay? So about 6 years ago. Previously, they'd got a degree first in that degree in it's a BA, Joint Honours in French and Hispanic Studies, as well as then a PGC, and went into teaching. Now, their career has fallen into 3 very clear chapters so far. The first one, following on from what they were very good at, was to move straight from those studies into being a linguist and a language teacher, teaching French. When that came to an end, and that was sort of triggered by a sort of traumatic event in the family, which triggered an interest in CBT and some mental health therapies. And at that point, this person decided to retrain. And because those therapies have been so useful for them in person, they thought, I'd love to be involved in helping people with this. So that's what that certificate was all about. However, sadly, having done that for a while, the kind of work that they got involved with started to trigger this again, trigger the same problems. And so it was all a little bit too close to home. And so it was time for another change of direction. Rather than going back to being a teacher, they decided, you know what, I need to be able to put my brain into a sort of a lower intensity work to lose the stress a little bit here. And they just took an admin role within the council. And what happened there, interestingly enough, was very good. You can see from the results, a distinction, a first. They were kind of overqualified for doing an admin role. And even without trying, rapidly got flattered into a promotion. And now the money's good. But unfortunately, that work wasn't fulfilling. Okay, and it isn't fulfilling for this particular person. So when we look at this, we can see now that it's clear that case study A, our person A, the ladder for them is leaning against the wrong wall. Okay, so they've taken this admin job, they've got into some council work. The money's actually quite good because they've had a couple of promotions, but their ladder's against the wrong wall. They're not fulfilled in this. The role at the moment is too corporate. And what they told me was they really want to get back to people, to a smaller, more flexible organization and way of working. Each of those 3 big chapters so far kind of ended with a problem or a difficulty. And so this current job had been started in an admin role after a burnout, after a psychological burnout. And so the aim was to get back to work, but allow the mind to kind of be neutral, low stress. So even though then they were told they were overqualified, but then they got promoted twice. And as I said, the money was good. So now it's kind of hard to let them go, but it's not fulfilling. So the situation in summary here is not fulfilling work, but that pays really well. And so going into something else that might be more of a passion or more interesting may not pay the bills as well as this, but it's hopefully going to be more fulfilling. Now, person A has identified a possible route, which is, and I had never heard of this, is what I love about this job. There's a career here called social therapeutic horticulture, okay? Now, this neatly builds on the postgrad qualification and on some of the experience already helping people. It helps those with learning difficulties, it helps those with mental health difficulties, and it helps those maybe in addiction recovery, amongst other things as well. But this is using horticulture, plants, if you will, in a therapeutic way. You may have heard about animals doing this, you may have heard about play, you may have heard various different ways of doing this, art potentially, lots of different ways. This is using plants. And unfortunately, though, it does require retraining, and we're not sure exactly what the income potential will be and how that might stack up to the current good income level that person A is on. So hopefully that's making sense, as you can see. So, sorry, I'm going to go past that one. What I wanted to get to here was I wanted to get to, sorry, let me go back one. My recommendation here is that this is always the recommendation first. So while you're thinking about it, and all of you who are on this call, what I want you to do is I want you to wait before you resign. Okay, so don't jump into resigning too quickly, because it's tempting sometimes to get so frustrated and just think, you know what, it's difficult around the busyness of my work to find time to get this search done properly or to do the research I need to do. But I strongly recommend, we're in a very tricky time, COVID and so on. There's lots of expenses going up for all of us in terms of living expenses. So I strongly recommend put up with it for a while and wait until you're clear, you've got the clarity you need before you resign. That's always the first recommendation. So for case study A, the second recommendation here, this is a tip which I gained from a recruitment consultant, friend of mine. He said, if possible, try not to jump from a low. If you can imagine in your career, you have high points and low points. We've all been there. Low points, high points, high points, low points. Now, as we heard in this case study, person A had been hitting problems and maybe down and low points and then trying to make a move up. Now, if you've ever tried to move from a position where you're feeling low, struggling with mental health, struggling with anxiety, trying to get into a job search and that kind of process is even harder when you're feeling down. Whereas, if possible, and I'm not saying this is always possible, but if it is, think about this, because there's an important idea here to time your move. Imagine you've just had a promotion, as person A has done. Imagine that you have had a big win, and maybe if you're in a sales job, maybe you've made a big sale and you're feeling great, you're feeling buoyed up. Maybe you don't love the job, but you're on this high. That's a good chance. Or maybe I've got another client at the moment. She's just she's £100,000 ahead of her sales target, and the company thinks she's walking on water. They think is amazing. So she can almost not go wrong with what she's doing. So when you're on that high point, you can just hop to another high, and that's a great psychological place to make a move. So try to move from high to high rather than from a low to a high. It makes your move a lot easier. My third recommendation here is identify your greatness. Okay, so dare to dream here as well. So it may be for category for person A, sorry, that the therapeutics around horticulture could be, and that therapy could be the right way to do this. But there might be other options. And so what I would encourage you to do is follow this exercise from last week, which is what we called finding your greatness. And I asked you to answer these questions. So what inspires you? What do you do best? And what do you enjoy doing? And find out where the overlaps are. Find out the elements of the jobs you've done in the past and put them in here. And as I've said here, what stops you scrolling? What do you choose to watch? What interests you? What frustrates you? What angers you? What makes you feel jealous? What envious? What do you like on social media? What do you share on social media? So for the next week or longer, pay attention to what grabs your attention and note it down. If it's something that you just feel passionate about, maybe you see somebody else getting a job and think, oh, I wish I had one of those. That sounds amazing. Jot it down. work out where your sweet spot is, where your greatness could be. And for person A, if all of that leads to the answer being the therapeutic horticulture, fantastic. Okay, that's what we're looking for. My fourth recommendation here is to confirm that it pays enough. Okay, this is another tool here. It's called Ikigai. Ikigai, you can look this one up. It's done the rounds for sure on social media. It translates from Japanese roughly into your reason for being. And you can see this is another overlapping circles, kind of another Venn diagram. Very clever one, I think. I didn't create this one, by the way. But look at the bottom, at the very bottom here where the yellow arrow is pointing to, it says, it must be what you can be paid for as well. So this is not just something that you love, but you need to be able to get paid for doing this as well. So don't just chase a dream because you love it and you're passionate about it. That won't necessarily pay the bills. We need to make sure. So part of this recommendation is to make sure it pays you enough. The fifth recommendation is to check your criteria. Last week, I told you about 3 criteria sets. The first set are the hard criteria. Here they are. By the way, this is a spreadsheet which is in the members area. You can download this template. It's got all the prompts in here. It's got a space for you to fill in your own answers. So think about your hard criteria. This is what you use to brief recruiters or to talk to people in your network so they can help bring the right kind of opportunities to you. The soft criteria in column D of the spreadsheet, these are designed, and you'll see an example later on from one of our people who've already done the exercise. She showed a collage of a perfect month in her new job. And we distilled those images down into this list, or a list like this one. And that gives you criteria for, is that job that you're looking at going to be able to get even close to giving you a perfect month, a month that you would love, like on your Everest? Is it going to be good enough? And then red flags, hopefully self-explanatory. That is the list where you put things you would hate, things that are an absolute no for you. If you see that, if that's a cultural element of that company that you've been looking at, just say no, refuse to go there and move on, find some other place. And then finally, for person A, recommendation number 6 is remember to job craft. Okay, so job crafting, remember, is don't accept a job as it's given to you, as it's presented by the job description. Job crafting is where you say, oh, do you know what? I like what you're saying with this job description, but I could also bring you this. I also have these skills. I'd like to do more of that. And you may find, you won't always find, but you may find that an employer says, oh, we didn't know you could do that as well. That would be really helpful. Yes, we'll build that into your job description. But you may also say, I'm not going to do that. Okay, this is, and you can't always do it unless you're sufficiently senior, but you can sometimes remove elements of the job as well. Say, listen, that's not my skill. And I'm not wanting to do that in my job. So I'd like to either do less of it or none of it. Okay, so remember to job craft and try to shape a career. And you can job craft as well, remember, where you are right now. You may be able to speak to your boss and negotiate and craft some elements of your job, do more of what you're great at, do less of what you don't enjoy. All right, so that's case study number 1. Have we got any questions at the end of that? So that's hopefully making clear sense and hopefully using the ideas that we talked about last week in answer to that. Any questions? Have a think about it. I'm going to move into case study 2. I can't see any coming in immediately. Case study 2, this is Louise. Okay, so Louise is, I know this says Cambridge. She's one of us. She's a Newcastle grad, but she's working at the moment at a Cambridge museum. And she graduated back in 2017. She did a BA in history and archaeology. She graduated with a 2-1 from Newcastle. She did various jobs before getting this job. She was a cleaner, she worked in a pub, she was a lifeguard, she was on the complaints desk, imagine that, at Waitrose, and she was also working in a bar. Then she got this job. Now remember, she did history and archaeology. She went to Cambridge to go and get a job in one of their museums, and she loves it. Okay, now here's the difference. She loves this job, right? She is just happy. She says she's on her feet all day. It's fun. She likes the people. It's challenging in the right ways. It's practical. Loves the job. However, the concerns. Let me just have a quick drink. Try and keep this voice going. She says, unfortunately, this is a 5-year project. She's cataloguing and conserving elements from the store cupboards, if you will, from this museum, various museums. She loves doing it, but she feels it's stagnant and unprogressive. And because the project is fixed funded, there's no funding for training. She can't get promoted. She's only on 23,000 a year, and the annual increase is only £180. Divide that by 12. So, you know, the monthly increase that she's seeing in a pay packet each year, minimal. Okay, so this is, the money is the problem here. And to make it worse, even though this is so poorly paid, okay, it's a passion job, if you like, it's totally competitive. She had to fight off 700 rival applicants for her job. So there's a lot of people who would love to do this as well. So she loves it. She just wishes she could make some more money. All right, so hopefully that's making sense as this case study. She has also identified another role potentially, and she has called it, or it is called, heritage consultant. Now, I didn't know, again, what a heritage consultant was, so I looked it up for you. And the definition is managing construction and restoration projects on property sites such as historic or listed buildings, landscapes, museums, okay? This builds on her qualification, it builds on her experience. It's got the potential to earn a lot more money. It's got an average starting figure at about 25, slightly above where she is now, but it could be up to 41, maybe 42,000 on average. So if she moves quickly into that, that could solve the money issues. Plus, very important, I talk about up escalator jobs and up escalator categories. Certain things just attract and win attention. Do you know what? Every time they launch a new one of these, an iPhone, people queue up round the block. You know that. People go crazy for it. It gets loads of hype and publicity because people want the latest technology. But there's other things like crockery, for example, which is a down escalator category. We try to buy some of these things on deal, on sale. We never want to buy the expensive crockery. And we don't upgrade our plates every couple of years like we do our phones, all right? So make sure you're trying to pick a category for your career which is trending upwards, because that's where you're going to be making more money, it's where the attention's going to be, and you're not going to get stuck. So the recommendations, number one, don't resign, okay? Wait before you resign. Number two, I think having checked here, we should make sure, you know, we found one opportunity. Let's do the Everest check here. I think Louise should identify her Everest. She really needs to spend some more time and check, is the heritage consultant right? Or is there another job which is on up escalator that could be even better? So identify her Everest. The questions here, what are the elements of the job that she wants? Okay, and you know, she loves working with heritage, with the old, you know, with the historic details. She wants to keep those elements, but she'd also like to change the element of the pay, right? And we all know that people make a lot of money in restoration. And so that could be done, and could be by linking restoration to expensive property developments and maybe gentrification, for example. It could be a chance to go well ahead of that average 41,000, maybe up into the 80,000, 100,000 if she gets involved with the right property development team. So this could become very much what she loves, the Everest, but the dream, the Everest here, could be making a lot of money and still working in restoration and heritage, okay? So that's where we're hopefully trying to get to. So what lily pads could be in the right direction? Remember, a lily pad could be about more training. She might need some property training. She might need to do something like surveying or RICS. I don't know. It's just a thought. But the lily pad could be a hop towards that Everest. The third recommendation is to list the skills required. Okay, so the thing to check here, the recommendation is to do a transferable skill check. Very often you've got a lot more skills than you might realize. But what she could do here is she could find out what skills are required as a heritage consultant. Check in a job description for that job. What are they asking for? Which of those does she have and which are missing? Because then we've done our gap analysis. Once we've identified the gap, we need to, as we looked at last week, And again, it's in the members area. If anyone's joining for the first time, we showed you how to fill gaps. What she can do here is work out, could she do a short training course? Could she go and interview somebody? Could she fill the gap quickly? Or does she need to do something more extreme to be able to fill that gap before she can make this move? Chances are she could probably make the move. And if you go on LinkedIn, and this is the right URL, by the way, I'll put it in here for you because it's a slightly odd one. So this is linkedin.github.io/career-explorer. This is called LinkedIn's Career Explorer, and it matches the skills you have now to check your percentage fit against other jobs. So what you can do is enter into your LinkedIn profile your existing skills, what you can do right now, and it will tell you which jobs are a good fit for you. All right, so check that one. It's a really interesting way of exploring where you could go with the skills you've already got. Because I promise you, there's lots of jobs which can use whatever career you're doing right now, which can use the skills you've got. All right. For Louise, recommendation number 4 is interview those in the job. All right. So interview those who are already in the job. Now, this is so simple, yet hardly anyone ever does it. Rather than approach an interview into a new category with zero experience or with a gap, identify a few people on LinkedIn who are currently doing the job you want. So in this case, the heritage consultant. And then reach out, tell them you're fascinated by their career, flatter them a little bit, and ask them if they could spare 15 minutes. They'll probably give you half an hour, trust me, because they'll love talking about it. And ask them, and what we're trying to do is just say, can you tell me about how you got into this? What's it like? Most of them will say yes. Prepare your questions so you're not wasting their time. If you do this with 2 or 3 people, you will be able to quickly evaluate your planned move. Is it as good as you hope it would be? Is it better? And you'll be able to have it in your next interview when you go in. Rather than saying, oh no, I've got no experience, you'll say, well, I've started to get experience. And even in the last month, I've spoken to these 3 people to really learn about this. And this is what I've learned. And so you'll find your interview performance can be transformed by following this recommendation. Okay. Recommendation number 5 for Louise is only aim for uptrend roles. Like I said, follow the graph on the way up, right? What is trending up? What does the world want more of? Anything is either ascending or descending. Try to pick a job in ascending category, all right? And those of you who are stuck or feel it's going nowhere or aren't getting paid well, you might find you're in a descending category, all right? So follow the upward trends of what more people want more of. So every time iPhone, I said, launches, people queue around the block to get the upgrade. When we buy crockery, we buy it from TK Maxx in the sale, right? Get in the technology space or get in the property space in this case. Don't get in the crockery or the sale discounted space because it's difficult to make money. It's difficult for other people to get excited about what you're doing. And number 6, we've said it before, but here it is again. Last one for Louise. Make sure, Louise, you've got your criteria filled out, your hard criteria, your soft criteria for what would a great job look like. Do your collage. You're going to see that from Caitlin in a little while. And then, of course, check out your red flags because it maybe some property developers have got ethics that you don't agree with. So don't work with them, but work with the ones who are doing the right thing with these restoration projects. So I'm sure that would fit really well. Hopefully that worked there, Louise, and gives you some good tips on that. So there's 6 recommendations for you in that case. Any questions that are coming in? Jeremy, how are we doing? Any questions that are coming in from people at the moment?
No, not at the moment. I think everybody's just absorbing what you're telling us, which is absolutely great. I'm happy inside of my job, but I'm still picking stuff up like that hard and soft criteria thing. Really useful. Might need to borrow that. So yeah.
Very good. Yeah, they really work, and we can delve deeper into that later on in our later Q&A, Jeremy. So yeah, good point. Thanks for picking that one up. So let's look at case study number 3. Okay, this is Caitlin. Now, I had a slide out of order. Apologies earlier, so I wasn't revealing anything from our hidden identity from case study A. Unfortunately, one of Caitlin's slides was out of order, so apologies for that. Caitlin's story is as follows. She graduated from Newcastle University. She's one of us. with a first-class BA Hons degree in geography and Japanese. Now, for most of us, this blows our mind because she is fluent in Japanese, and she has gone on, as you can see here on this page, to do a number of different jobs. Now, we have listed her salary progress, her earnings progress down the page, if you can see on the right-hand side. Now, she's done a number of different roles. I'm not going to go into all of the detail here, but she started off on a living wage. Okay, so this was doing an unfulfilling role in a great industry. Okay, this was a regeneration forum. She loved the work, paying very badly. She then did a JET program, and here this was about being a coordinator for international relations. Good on paper, good local salary, but unfortunately boring and unfulfilling. Okay, so she moved on again. Then she had this next job in Japan. So this was working with a tourism association. Unfortunately, again, the salary was too low, lack of opportunities to develop, and poor management. So still only on 14K equivalent here in the UK. This was a part-time role, which was only paying a small extra sum. Okay, so supplementary income, good to develop the new skills and social media management. By the way, social media uptrend, all right? Okay, so massive example there of getting involved in a skill which she can reuse in lots of other places, all right? And then lockdown, COVID, and look what happened to her. So she's in the UK again at this point. She's at Morrison's, minimum wage, all right? So she's on the deli counter. I'm sure that wasn't even as busy as it used to be because everyone was sort of doing minimal shopping. So a really kind of traumatic turn of events there, like so many of us for careers. Most recently, her current role is with a company called Scandit, where she's doing business development, which for most of us means sales, all right? And she's a representative for Japan selling to the Japanese, okay? So this means she's got a much better salary. Look at this. So she's done amazingly well here in terms of pulling the salary up from where she was. In addition, so OTE, in case you didn't know, means on target earnings. So it means that if you're hitting your sales targets as well, you get additional income. So she'll be earning above the 35K basic. Good benefits, good location. She's able to work. This is making it possible for her to live in London where she wants to be and enjoying a good life. However, unfortunately, the job is unfulfilling in the wrong industry. And let's just go a little bit deeper into the analysis. So far, what she's done is she's based her job moves on skills and experience and a fit with the job description rather than if the organization or the duties there inspire or motivate her. And consequently, she's ended up quickly dissatisfied in so many of these jobs. So the current role is a Japanese-speaking sales representative for this software company. Imagine doing that. She's selling into Japan. I think that's like 8 hours ahead. So she's in the UK working 8 hours ahead. That means some early starts, kind of antisocial in terms of work-life balance. The push factors, okay? So she's identified these. Remember last week we talked, those of you who are here, we talked about what are the push factors, what's pushing you out of where you are that you don't like, and then what's pulling you, coming up on the next slide. But the push factors pushing her out. So she doesn't find either the role or the industry interesting. Using her Japanese skills is not benefiting her career. Okay, yes, she's speaking in Japanese, but she's not getting ahead more than she would if she was speaking in English. So she could do a sales job in English and be the same, all right? So what we're looking for, and when she chose Japanese, she thought it would be a strategic advantage, which it really could be, okay? So with the right job, where her Japanese skills would differentiate her and would be appreciated, that could be really helpful and giving her an advantage. However, because she's working for a Japanese company, even though she's fluent, her Japanese is never going to be, you know, those of you who have languages, you can be brilliant, and she is brilliant at language. She can sell in Japanese, for goodness sake, but it's not the same as being a native speaker. Whereas if she was selling for a British company, for example, into Japan, not a Japanese company, they would think her Japanese was fantastic and much better than what many of them could do. So she may need to find another strategic move here, if you see what I'm saying, so that her Japanese skills become an advantage. Because at the moment, she's getting criticized. So she's not learning, she's not developing, and her language and her performance is getting criticized and micromanaged, partly the Japanese culture, and that's really grinding her down. She's not enjoying that at all. The long hours, difficult time zone, cultural differences between herself and the company and the Japanese team as well, that she's remotely working with, and no positive change visible in the short or the long term. All right, that doesn't sound great, does it? I mean, you can see why she's looking at a move here and why she's volunteered for this case study. The pull factors, okay, she would love, remember we're in COP26 week right now, so we're here, everyone's thinking about the environment, the planet. She would love to help fight the climate crisis. She wants to reduce inequality. She wants to be in an organization that fits her values better. She wants a more dynamic and engaging role with space to learn and to develop. And she wants to use English for her job in a career here. Okay, so that's where she is at the moment. She has identified a potential future career in city planning, but unfortunately, it requires, she's identified, a master's, where she's looked at UCL, where she's in London, excuse me, £25,000 investment. That's a lot of money. If she was to go to a similar school, I think that's a typo on the school, I'm not sure. In the Netherlands, that is a similar amount of money, slightly less, or she's not got to pay the extra for London cost of living if she goes to that school, but it's still a lot of money. And of course, she'd be then in full-time education. So let's look at the things she's done. She's already tried job crafting, all right? She's joined and working in her diversity and inclusion committee and mentorship scheme. She's asked her manager for a transfer to her EMEA team for the company, and she's tried to push for a January deadline for this to happen. Question what to happen if that doesn't happen, because working in Europe rather than working in Japan would make a big difference. It would be crafting the job to make it better. Remember, we said that you can remold it without having to change. Best thing you can do, keep all those benefits, keep all the good things, and reduce some of the elements she doesn't like, at least before she resigns. Right, so this is why we're planning. Crafting makes it better before you move. Quick fixes, she's done some volunteering and activism for various different organizations, so she's involved in what she loves. So that's a kind of benefit, excuse me. And then also she's done some short courses. So I hope my voice doesn't go at this point, excuse me. So the next thing that she looked at, the full fixes, could be the masters, which could be a deferred entry, or it could be these opportunities that are there for her at the moment. There's some barriers, okay? If she wants to make this change from what she's doing at the moment, then there's a couple of barriers. She's got the wrong history. She doesn't have the right network here. She's not got the portfolio or the platform to move from. She's busy with her job and she's working a lot of hours, which makes it difficult to find time to search or to do the applications. And financially, these are like mountains of barriers in front of her. All right, so this is a big, big problem here. Think about this as well. If you're earning 35K plus bonuses based on being on target, which she is, so she might be on 40, 50, 60,000, to suddenly go to having to pay for this and not earning because she's doing a full-time degree, that's going to be really challenging, right? So imagine the lifestyle switch there. That's what we're up against in this particular case study. Here's my recommendations for Caitlin. Number one, wait, don't resign. Let's get this planned before we start making any big jumps. Take time, Caitlin, here to visualize. I want you to imagine doing all of that study. I want you to imagine the lifestyle change from where you are, or even though you're working hard and unfulfilling things at the moment, you're well paid. Okay, so imagine also that pay cut. Spend some time there, not just momentarily, but really dwell on that, because the question is that going to be worth it? Now, ultimately, long term, probably yes. But is this the only way to do it? Is it the only way to move? Or could we find some other ways to transfer? Could it be maybe a part-time degree? Could there be ways that we could keep some of the income while we transfer and get the learning? Excuse me. So take time to visualize, my recommendation number 2. Again, we're back to our greatness exercise here. Work out, spend some time, and Caitlin has spent some time looking at this already. She's already done this exercise. So she thinks she's looking at the right kind of place. She knows that for her, what's going to inspire her is this activism, this working for the environment, working for the planet, working on a job. By the way, I don't know if you've heard this recently, but one of the big fund managers who is, they're out there making a lot of money in the financial markets. He believes that the next 1,000 unicorns, as in the billion-dollar valuations, he believes that the next 1,000 of those are going to come in the world of saving the environment. All right, excuse me. He believes that that is what's going to be the source of many of these areas. So it is going to be possible to make money. All right, don't think that campaigning and activism can't be simultaneously lucrative. Sometimes that can work as well. So that's the third recommendation. The fourth one is to do the interview piece as well. So we think, Caitlin, definitely before you move into this, definitely start interviewing some people who are doing those jobs in city planning. Speak to them, make sure it is definitely what you want so that we don't move without really checking. The fifth recommendation for Caitlin is to explore alternative entry routes. So is the 25K, the 2-year master's, the only route in? Are there alternatives? What about a focused certificate course for 12 weeks at maybe more like £3,000? Could that be quicker and more affordable? And would it allow at least a partial move in? So let's consider those at least. And then finally, again, check your criteria, check the hard criteria for briefing out and finding the opportunities. Very often when you use your network, you'll find doors that can be opened. All right, this is the important thing here. The soft criteria will stop you moving. This is how you evaluate opportunities that get brought to you. So that will stop you moving something that's not quite right or not going to be the big move that you want. And remember, you don't have to get Caitlin to Everest on the first jump. We're looking for a lily pad that gets you closer to Everest. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but just along the right lines. And think about what you don't want. Probably this wrong culture, the micromanagement I know you've talked to me about as well. So that's what we're looking to learn from. Case study 4. I know we're running to the end of time here, so I'm going to go quickly through this one because it's an interesting one, but I want to go quickly so we can get to some other Q&A as well. This is another Newcastle grad in medicine, graduated 2017. She's now a doctor in her 5th year of practice, specializing in year 2 of a specialism in obstetrics and gynecology. She got into medicine originally because she had better than expected grades, but has never really, when she reflected, when we spoke, never really been happy in medicine and is now really unhappy in the role. She suffered mental health issues and needed time off while she's been doing this, really feels physically unsuited to the night shifts and hates the irregular work, the lack of weekends. Now, of course, on the line here for case study B, there's a lot of years of specialist training. Medicine's a long degree. She's done extra years of work since then as well if she quits. But she's identified a future direction potentially in law, focusing on clinical negligence. Her husband already works in law, so she's able to gain deep insight into that just by speaking to someone she knows well and into his network. There's some career capital that she can move because she's not saying I'm going to just, remember about moving that ladder, she's not saying I'm going to move into criminal law. She's talking about clinical negligence, which is related, of course, to medicine. So we talked about career capital, some of your experience, the some of your network and your education. She can move a lot of that with her. And even if she moves away from medicine into the law, a lot of her clinical experience, a lot of her medical experience can make her very credible when she's got the legal training as well. She will, of course, need to compete with law grads who've got full-time opportunities to apply while she's still in full-time medicine as a job, and she'll need to get her qualifications. So that makes it more challenging. So the advice, the recommendations for case study B: wait, don't resign. Let's get clear on this to begin with. Then let's consider that move. We've been climbing a long way. We've done a lot of work to climb as high as we have on the medical ladder. Is this really what we want? All right, so consider that. Consider what it's like. Are there other ladders on the same wall? Should we be moving to this completely different wall? And can we take enough of our career capital with us to make it worthwhile? Definitely think about greatness. Think about what's going to be inspiring for her, what she's going to be best at doing, and what she's really going to enjoy doing as well. All right. So we want to make sure that that's working as well, the greatness exercise. Definitely she can interview people who are already in the world of clinical negligence as lawyers. She can make sure that that's definitely the world she wants to move to before she jumps. And of course, she can check the criteria as well. And one final one here as well. This is a recommendation that I call: be a class act leaver. All right, be a great leaver. So it's easy to just fade out of a job. When you decide you're going, you can mentally check out, and you might have 3 months notice period. But the world is surprisingly small. So you can bump into people in many places again. And if you do bad things when you're leaving, or you come across as being lazy, that can stick as a reputation. So your reputation as a leaver will follow you. I recommend you really make time to hand over thoroughly, leave things better than you found them, and use the last few months to really harvest as much experience as you can from whatever you've been doing, and leave a legacy so that you move on a happy high. Remember what I talked about, moving from high to high, rather than going out on a low, burned out and hating it, and then trying to go in being good at something else. It's always better to move high to high. It's a happier experience, I promise you. Whew, Jeremy, we did it. That's 4 case studies.
We did.
So how are we doing? Any more questions that may have come in? And I'll try and do any other Q&As quickly if we can.
Yes. There's one that's come through just specifically. I was just going to mention really briefly for that specific last example is, if you're working in niche markets, it very much makes sense to keep a good reputation, because those worlds are very small. How many of us have bumped into them like, oh, I went to Newcastle too, as a small world problem? If you work in a niche industry and you leave a bad reputation, that gets around. So
absolutely. Yeah, be a great leaver. Be great all the time and be positive, because negative and being a bad leaver certainly sticks. It's a really bad thing. It's very hard to check.
Yeah, I do think on the previous example as well, it'd be really interesting to see the full list of the various connotations, what actually means sales rather than business development, executive, all those sorts of things, which mean sales. We did have a question which come through, which said the next or the first job doesn't have to be your Everest, but with the short weeks that we've actually got, when we actually look at the number of weeks that we break down to, isn't it a waste of time to operate in a job that you don't want to do, that you have no desire to get to, even if it's just a lily pad stepping stone?
Well, the only reason for doing a lily pad is if you can't jump straight to the Everest. So don't waste time on lily pads that don't work. We're not trying to stack up lots of lily pads for sure. So please don't misunderstand that. If you can jump to Everest, and in some cases it is possible, to jump into a dream career, but for most people it's important or necessary to do some kind of interim step. Now, those lily pads can be some more training. They might be these interviews that I've been talking about, by just speaking to people who are in the industry. They could effectively be just networking. But whatever it might be, those are the mini steps you have to take to get to where you're really trying to get to. So, but don't spend too long on the lily pads. Absolutely not. I totally agree.
Yeah. Caitlin's actually come up with a follow-up question, which is making sure, you said you make sure that you're on the up escalator. What is your view on taking a lower paid, lower skilled job, but in the right industry or area that could be the first step? Is it sometimes worth going down, almost like down a step to then go up a step, as it were?
Well, yes, it can be, for a number of reasons. We saw with case study A, she was suffering with mental health because she was really stressed. There was a lot of things that were triggering her because of a difficult family experience. And so that was very important that she took a easier job, and it was lower paid. Now, that's not quite what you were saying in this, because we were saying, well, you might find something in a brilliant industry. If we think about where she's trying to move to now, case study A, which is the therapeutic horticulture example, we still don't know that that's going to pay brilliantly, but it might be much more fulfilling than the better paying where she is at the moment with the council, if you remember, doing the sort of admin and contracting commissioning role. So she could be a lot happier, and it might not be much less money. All right. So sometimes it's definitely going to be worth sacrificing some of the money. But what I say again is try to think about job crafting and think about how you can provide more benefit, because they say that the money that we earn is proportional to the service that we deliver. All right. So if you think about serving more people, if I can serve more people through careers advice, I'm going to be better rewarded. So it's always about giving more, contributing more. And just because one job, you might get a lily pad that's lower paid, but we might be ideally looking, and we want to check before we do move to a lower paid lily pad, let's see if there's a higher paid Everest that we might be able to hop to after taking that lower paid job. That's the way I'd be trying to think about this. Unless you're happy with lower money forever, and very few of us are. You know, we work hard, it's nice to be rewarded.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So somebody's asked, what happens if your Everest is not what you expect? You can never really do enough research to find the thing that would suit you like perfectly. Is it worth maybe perhaps just job hopping throughout your career and not settling for that Everest role?
That's a difficult question. So if Everest is not what you expect, is it worth job hop? What, indefinitely job hop?
Yeah, I suppose the killer question is, let's say you've set yourself to be, we'll use me. Let's say I decide I'm going to be a director of alumni relations and advancement in a university, and I spend all my time, and I get there and I do 2 years in the role and be like, I don't like this. I've done all this work. This has been my Everest, and I've got there and it's not for me. Yep. What do I then do? Because, you know,
sure. Well, okay, hopefully we don't get to that point, because we want to have really worked through using the overlapping circles exercise and the greatness to work out what you would really like, and we want to check. And remember, we want to use the interview recommendation as well to check in advance and spend time with people who are doing that role so we really know. But if you do get there and you hate it, guess what? Everest is part of a chain of mountains. Okay, there's a Himalaya of different jobs. So you may choose something else within development or within academia or within the university. Or you may say, do you know what? I don't like the Himalayas. This university thing is not for me. But over there is the Karakoram range. And that might be social work. It might be something to do with mental health. It might be the environment, you name it, but it's a different range. And you can always step down off your Everest and go and search again. All right. So Everest is this metaphor that's ongoing. It's always the ultimate step in your career that you want to get to. If you ever don't want to get there, stop climbing. No one's forcing you to go up Everest or to stay at the top if you don't like it.
Yeah, totally agree. Couple of other things that have come through. Is it too late to change your career at, say, 40 or 45? What are your opinions on that?
So the answer, it would be very easy for me to say no, not too late, end of answer. But let me try to be a bit more useful with that. I think that what you need to think about by 45, I'm going to be 45 in January, so I can really relate to this question. If I was to change career, what I need to think about is, what can I move with me? So how can I take my transferable skills that I have built into what I'm doing at the moment? That's my career capital. Remember, that's what's building up on my career ladder to where I've got to so far. Now, if I choose to do something completely different and I can't take any of that because none of my experience is relevant, then I choose to probably drop down in terms of income. I choose to have to retrain and relearn, and that's my choice. So I can definitely do it. It's worth it if I realize that my passion, my idea of what's greatness for me is totally different. So then it's definitely going to be worth it. But you've got to also realize by 45, you've probably got potentially a mortgage, you might have children, you might have sort of dependents. So it might not be so easy just to step into something completely different. So we have other restrictions on our lives potentially by that point. But I definitely think it's not too late to shift. But what I would tend to encourage is a shift where you can utilize more of the career capital, and you may find you can make the shift and actually earn more. So that's what I would encourage my clients to do. I very rarely do I work with someone who actually ends up earning less. We always try to increase wherever they are, because money is useful. You can always give more away.
Great. Suzanne has raised her hand, so she's very willing to ask a question. So, Suzanne, if you go ahead and ask a question, we'll see what we can do.
Hiya. Just the comment about in older age, can you change? I did my degree, I started it when I was 46, and I just graduated last year. I'm about to turn 53 and totally changed around. I didn't get the chance to go to university when I was younger. So I went from working in complex care and palliative care to do a nutrition degree at Newcastle University. But to totally switch things around, while at the university, I got involved with the Bee Society, and I'm a beekeeper, and I've now set up my own beekeeping business, and I'm actually doing that rather than nutrition, although I do plan to still nutrition in some form. So honestly, go for it, no matter what age you are. If you hate what you're doing, change it. And don't wait until, as was mentioned in the talk, don't wait until that bottom where you're at your lowest ebb to do that change. Do it while you're on the high and have the energy to show everyone that you can really do what you want to do. Don't do it when you're so miserable everybody's glad to see the back of you. Basically. Great. Do it when you're on such a high that everyone is for you and wants you to succeed because they can see how good a worker you are.
Fantastic. No, I think that's brilliant advice. And congratulations, by the way, on completing that degree. And it's also great to hear how you know, because clearly it's nutrition, and then going into a honey business, that's still nutrition. So it's all related there. Very, very interesting. It reminds me of this. Let me move on to this screen. I've got this I found this on social media today. Thought I'd share it with you. This is Gary Tan's best career advice. At every job, you should either learn or earn. Either is fine. Both is best. But if it's neither, quit. All right. So I thought that summed it up pretty well.
It does. I
do say, as always, before you quit, let's just take a little bit of time to work out where you're going to go to next. So don't resign in a rush. But as Suzanne has just said, it's never too late. It's really never too late. You can make a move, and with the right advice as well, we can help you get that right, and you can build forward. So don't stay in something that's really feeling wrong. If your ladder's against the wrong wall, it's time to change.
Move the ladder. I've got a couple more questions that are rolling through. I know we're past, but people keep asking questions, which is great. Please keep submitting them. Somebody's asked if most of your experiences in a particular aspect of work, so things like sales, customer support, marketing, whatever it is, how can you prevent future employees from kind of pigeonholing you into those sorts of roles and thus potentially missing out on experience that you get?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of that comes down to the way you tell your story. Now, we usually tell our story on paper with a CV or a resume, depending on which country you're in, and also online, which is very often through LinkedIn or through your application. You get to choose the words that are in your CV. You get to choose the story you tell on your LinkedIn profile. Now, if you have a traditional format CV, which I do not recommend, a traditional CV is like saying, dear reader, here is everything I have ever done backwards. What do you think? Now take your time to read all the way through everything I've done and see if you can find something useful and relevant for you. Over to you, dear reader. I don't believe that's a good idea. That's why I invented what I call the high impact CV, which totally turns that through 180 degrees. The secret, by the way, do you want to know the secret to landing a job interview? The secret is to have a CV that tells the story that your future employer already wants to read. Let me repeat that. The secret is to tell the story that your future employer already wants to read. So if you've got a load of history in your old career, the old wall that we were leaning against, let's not lead with that, because they're going to go, oh, doesn't seem relevant. It's all about something else, and they'll reject you. Whereas with this new way of writing the CV, what we do is all of that gets, not saying hidden, because it's all there. We never lie on a CV, but we push that down. And what we do is through those interviews that we've been talking about, through your criteria, through your transferable skills, that's what we load into page 1. So guess what? We can tell that reader the story that they want to read. That's what's really important here. And even through the headline, just with the headline on that CV, excuse me, we can make them believe that you could be the right candidate just with the headline. Right, so I promise we can help with that. So if you're stuck with your CV, let me know, because we can solve that problem for sure.
Great. Yeah, I totally agree. You've got to sell, you've got to basically write to the criteria. It sounds terrible, but write to the criteria, shape what you are to that particular role, rather than be like, this is all the stuff that I've done, because if you get 300 CVs, you aren't reading 300 CVs.
Absolutely. They don't want to know everything you've done. They want to know, how can you help them make money now? That's it.
Yeah. I've had a couple of ones. So Martha was one of the individuals who was on from last week, and who's come on this week. And she's asked, are there any real chances of becoming a part-time writer? I'm a PG graduate in creative writing. I work as an English private tutor. It's quite frustrating. I'm not really making the kind of money I want due to the pandemic, because I'm a private tutor and people just aren't taking me on, and I just don't really feel like I'm suitable for applying for any sort of role.
Yeah, Marta, thank you. I got your question, and I got your volunteer for being a case study. Thank you for that. So let me try and do my best. If you would like to speak afterwards, we can go through some more detail. Do you know what? I don't think you've got an English problem or a creative writing problem. I think you've got a marketing problem. And I think what we need to do is market you differently for the roles that you want to be doing, for the life you want to be living. Because it sounds like to me you've got the skills, but they're not getting spotted. Okay. And trust me, other people are doing what you want with probably less qualifications and less talent than you've got. Excuse me. I promise you, if we market you better, we'll get you an interview and we'll get you the role you want. So I know it sounds like, from what you told me in what you shared, it sounds like you are super frustrated. It sounds like you're losing belief that you will be able to make that transition. I get that, I really do. And I'd love to see how you're applying at the moment and just see if there's any changes we could make. I don't doubt for a minute that it's difficult. I totally get that. And I totally understand as well that you might be feeling trapped within what you're doing in the tutor work at the moment. Let's have a look. And I'd love to sort of do that. We might be able to make that as a future case study or something like that, because I promise you, I bet you've got far more of the skills they want, and we've just got to sell it in better. It's going to be in that marketing so that they see the best bit of your story and they start to consider you. And we don't have to get to Everest, by the way. So you don't have to become a creative writer, as in, you don't have to have your own book or a creative publishing business, on day one. Whatever the Everest might be, let's not think about that too much. We might dream about it, but let's work on what are the lily pads to move you the first step from where you are as the problem at the moment. And it might be a part-time move. There may be still some tutoring going on for income. Let's work out what the move should be and get a career move strategy for you, Marta. I really promise you that will help. Promise you not stuck.
Great. That's really positive. That's exactly what people are after, which is, I'm sure that it's a marketing issue, not a you issue, as it were. I've got 2 more questions, and then we'll probably wrap it up, because I know we're already way past the time, and honestly, we could do this all evening.
I'm delighted we've still got lots of people here who were here to begin with. I know a few people must have had to leave, but yeah. I'm happy to keep answering questions, Jeremy, for as long as we've got. So
great.
I will help. As long as my voice lasts.
Yeah, I was about to say, as long as your voice lasts, and I'm impressed it's lasted as long as it has. So one of the questions, which is from Gretel, which is, what if you've hopped on the wrong lily pad and you want to get back on the right track?
Yeah.
In general, but especially if it's then been, a couple of years, maybe 5 or longer years since you were in that previous career. How do you sort of work your way back?
Sure. Good question, Gretel. Thank you. I think that, if you've hopped in the wrong direction and maybe you realize that's taken you off track from where Everest would be, and you need to get back, maybe you need to backtrack, but not always. Sometimes you can just hop back into the right line, if you will, into the sort of straight line route forward to your Everest. So that might be possible. Again, it's going to be a marketing issue. What we don't want to be doing, of course, if you then say, well, people always want to know when they're hiring you, so what are you doing at the moment? And if you tell them that, it's probably the wrong thing, and it won't help you get back to where you want to be. So what we want to do is get little things we can do. We never want to lie, as I said before. We always want to be truthful. But what other little lily pad could we put one foot onto to start getting you back into the experience of what you want, so that we can talk about current, recent, relevant experience? Maybe even a few of these interviews that we've talked about, interview a few people who are back in the right stream that you want to be on. So do that. And again, it's going to be a marketing approach. So what we need to do here is get you a CV, which is telling the story that the correct type of employer wants to read, not just this traditional CV, which will put the emphasis most likely on the most recent job, which is off track. All right. So it comes down to the way we tell your story, which again is a marketing challenge. And I promise you, with the right headline, with the right other background that sounds like you might have had from earlier on in your career, maybe your degree as well, we'll get you back on track. So I would need to see your degree and your full details and your CV to help you specifically. But what I would say is either come back, but just don't spend more time, and don't feel because you've moved, you've got to stay there. You can definitely come back. By the way, there's an article, it's in the LinkedIn group. So if you want to join the LinkedIn group, send me, let me just go forward to that here. LinkedIn group is here. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know that you'd like to join this private LinkedIn group. In there, there's an article on boomerang employees. Boomerang employees are the ones that go out somewhere else, then come back. So that's in Wired magazine. There's also lots of other articles out there on the web on boomerang employees. Loads of people are doing it. And when they come back, they actually have better terms and more money. So Gretel, it could be a great thing that you've done. Ideally, we'll find something out there that's good about what you've been doing, and we'll move you back on track. But it's in there, so join that group as well.
I think we've got time maybe for one more question, then we'll call it in and we'll wrap it up. So it's, what would you suggest if someone doesn't really know what their dream job is? Like, I know we talked about the greatness map that you've got, which I think is really useful, but is there anything else that people can do to really sort of craft down what that kind of ideal Everest style job is going to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. But you're quite right, Jeremy. The Everest map is the tool. So the overlap in the greatness map is the tool. So if you can't work out, so the whole purpose of the overlapping circles tool is to get you to what your Everest should be and to work out what the Everest is going to look like. So what I would say is just spend more time with that material. Remember what the exercise is. So you don't have to just drive straight to your Everest. What I recommend in that case is spend more weeks. And I recommend when we're doing step 1, which is my career direction module, when I do that with my private clients, we spend usually 4 to 6 weeks answering that question. And what they do is they look at what they're scrolling on social media. They look at what they're stopping on the news. Which articles are they reading? And we work out, the expression here is pay attention to what grabs your attention. And in my life, I know I'll just share this with you as an example. I've got a 3-year-old daughter. Anything that helps me, because there's no, those of you with children will know, anything if you have kids, there's no instruction manual when you become a first-time parent. No one tells you how to do this. And so you have to kind of work this stuff out. And most of us, if we've been through Newcastle, we're kind of ambitious people. We want to, we got there for a reason. We want to do this stuff right. And anything that helps me become a better dad, or helps me basically not mess it up, to keep that polite, because it's so easy to mess up your kids. So anything that I spot, that grabs my attention. All right. Other stuff, I'm trying to keep fit. I'm trying to renovate a house. I'm trying to run some businesses. All of these things grab my attention. And so these go into my circles for what inspires me, for what interests me. I got all inspired this morning. You probably saw David Attenborough's mention of how things have been declining during his lifetime, and how if we get this right, then we can make a difference and things can get better again. And I'm inspired by that as well. And this whole climate change, we can make a difference together. Lots of things that interest me. I put all those together onto this map and I work out what overlaps, which elements show more than once. And then we use that to work out, go back then to the GitHub piece that I showed you, the Career Explorer in LinkedIn, find out from the skills and the interest that you've got, which careers are looking like that, which careers will use those skills. And LinkedIn will tell you, it will suggest from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different jobs, it will suggest them to you. So you don't have to imagine this and think about it out of nothing. LinkedIn's there and there's tools out there that will suggest if you've got these skills, this would be a good job to at least consider. All right, so I hope that helps in terms of thinking it through.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I agree. I do think it is a time-consuming process, but it's a worthwhile process about mapping those things down. And especially, don't just think about your job like, oh, what am I looking at when I'm at my job? Because if you don't like your job, the stuff you're looking at is related to the job you don't like. It has to be, what are you doing in the evenings? What do you talk to your friends about and go, oh, that was really interesting, and then put that into the...
And let me just say one more thing as well, and forgive me everybody if this sounds self-serving. I don't mean it to sound self-serving. Sometimes going to a professional can help. For example, when my car breaks, or recently my dishwasher broke, I can look at that for weeks. It doesn't matter how many weeks I spend looking at my broken dishwasher. Ain't gonna fix itself. Not something I can do. I don't have that knowledge. I've never walked down that path before. But when it comes to helping you make a good career decision, I've held a lot of people by the hand. Like I said, I'm your guide with a plan when it comes to that. So if I can help, please consider that, because there's a bunch of free stuff. You don't need to spend money with me. I'm doing all this for free. If that's helpful, great. Take all the free stuff. There's a load of free stuff in the members area here as well. But if it's helpful to invest as well, do a little bit of that. You don't spend a lot of money, but sometimes going to a professional can help you get that right. And there's certain things, like I said, if my car breaks, I know I need help at that point. I don't try to learn it or work it out on my own. There's no shame by asking for help. That's what we're all here for. We're all here as experts in our own world to help each other. That's how we all get by and how we all get better.
That's great. And that, I think, is probably about all we've got time for. Thank you, everybody who stuck around for the full hour and a half. It's been fascinating. I know we could talk about it more. I'm sure Sam will talk about it more. If you link up with him on LinkedIn, use his group, it will be in these slides. It's on the screen now. Sam, thank you very much. I'm glad your voice survived another
we just made it. This is the link, by the way, everybody, at the bottom here. You can use that and just screen grab it, do whatever you've got to do here, photograph it, go to that link. Maybe we can drop it into the chat as well. I think, Danica, maybe if you've got that as well, that would be really helpful if you can put that into the chat. That link will let you get access to the members area. We'll put the replays in there as well. We've got the slides in there, so you don't have to just listen to me with my croaky voice today. Unfortunately, you can look at the slides if that's helpful as well. So that's what to do. The other thing as well, go to obviouscandidate.co.uk, not .com, .co.uk, and that's where you'll find the scorecard, and that will help you work out whether your CV is ready, whether your interview performance is ready, all of those different elements as well. So that will help you as well. So don't forget to take advantage of that. But all the details are in this members area. And I just wish you all the very best of luck. Do take time, do this, because careers are so important. These are the weeks of your life. And just a thank you from me to you all for your attention. I don't know how we did this, but there's more people on the call now than there was. Wherever you all come from, welcome. Those of you who are still joining. So great to see you. Thank you all for being here. And if I can be of future help, I'd love to. But thank you also to the university, to Jeremy, to Danica behind the scenes as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. If I can help you again, would love to do so. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Sam. Thanks everybody for being involved. I hope you have taken loads from this. I know I have. Have a lovely rest of your evening or morning if you're calling in from somewhere ahead of us. And hopefully we'll see you at future events soon. Thanks very much, everybody. Good night.